Hi, my name is Nandakumar and I'm talking to you from Kochi in India. As to what I am an observer of life, nothing more and nothing less. And the subject of this video is the land capital and the Kohinoor. Before we get going, let me present a small question for you to ponder. Imagine a terrible cataclysm taking place and wiping out every single public building on earth, with the exception of one building. One public building on earth survives. What would you pick as the sole survivor? As to my own answer to this question, I'll get to that. Let's get going with Kohinoor. Recently, there's been a lot of talk that the Kohinoor diamond, which was originally Indian, it belonged to India and was part of our heritage. It was taken away by the British imperialists and ought to be repatriated, so to say. And such an act would be at least an acknowledgement of the unspeakable horrors of imperialism. People like Shashi Tharoor have had plenty to say on this. Now again, if I am asked as a citizen of India, what would I say? Should the Kohinoor come back? Okay, I'll get to it. Before that, let me introduce the other item on our title, which is the land capital. As everybody knows, the four-land capital, the pillar capital by Ashoka, is India's national symbol. Ashoka had put up several pillars all over his empire, and the one at Sarnath was arguably the most spectacular of the lot. Four lands facing four directions. It was dug up by some British archaeologists around 200 years ago and is at present, the land capital is housed in a museum, archaeological museum in Sarnath near Banaras. I had the good fortune of seeing it in the museum recently. And to whoever chose it to be our national symbol, hats off. For the land capital is a phenomenal work of art. For one, it encapsulates and illustrates and expresses so many wonderful messages addressed to the whole of humanity about dharma and all. On top of it, it's a wonderful work of workmanship. Its craftsmanship is impeccable. The polish, the expressiveness, phenomenal. And another unique feature of it is it's a fully three-dimensional object. A lot of Indian sculpture is actually in relief or at best 2.5 dimensional, whereas the four-land capital is a full-fledged, full-blown three-dimensional object. You really need to walk all around the object and admire it from all angles to take it in fully. And its sheer presence is phenomenal. It's an 8-foot tall object. It just impresses you like anything. Now the downside, photography is not allowed. Isn't it a terrible shame that an Indian citizen is not allowed to photograph or videograph his or her own national symbol? And this is by no means an isolated example. All over India, you have phenomenal works of heritage, real heritage, being restricted, even to genuine seekers. In my own hometown of Kochi, arguably the finest bit of heritage in these parts are the Ramayana murals on the walls of the Dutch palace in Matajil. It's a phenomenal piece of work. The entirety of the Ramayana epic illustrated over several overlapping illustrations. I mean, they're not blocked out like episodes in a comic strip, but one episode sort of encroaches into the next, segs into the next, and there are no landscape details or sky, just figures, and an absolute bedlam of figures and action. For someone unprepared, seeing it for the first time, it can be really unsettling. The sheer experience of it. It's an ensemble. It's not just a single mural, but a whole ensemble of 30 to 40 episodes from the epic, drawn one after the other, one on top of the other. And let me suggest this thought experiment of actually visiting the place at night with a flickering oil lamp, a traditional kuttu vilakku, and just taking in the images one after the other. It's not a dead static electric light, but a pulsing oil lamp. The effect can be psychedelic. Again, the downside, no photography is allowed there. The rest of the building is freely open to photography. But the moment you enter the hall where the murals are painted, two guys have been stationed there. They keep saying, "No, sir, no, madam, no photos." And obtaining permission is a very non-trivial task. You have to visit some faraway place, meet some mysterious official somewhere, and get a very specific permission for just that one piece of heritage. If it is some other bit of heritage in some other place, a separate permission has to be obtained. It's a terrible shame, and it's a very Indian thing. Now, so if you ask me whether the Kohinoor has to come back, I'm not really very interested about the fate of Kohinoor. The reason is it's not really that much a part of India's heritage, except a lot of violence and gore that has taken place for possessing that diamond. The one bit of creativity about Kohinoor which I do appreciate is its name, the Mountain of Light in Persian. And it is a supreme irony of history that the one who coined this wonderful name for the diamond was one of our most violent marauders, the Persian king Nadir Shah. Well, history is full of ironies. So apart from that, the Kohinoor doesn't excite me too much. It's a lump of coal, nothing more. So if you ask me whether Kohinoor should come back to India, I would stick my neck out and say, no, I would say the land capital has to go back to, not go back, but go to the one building which I believe has to survive the cataclysm I mentioned upfront. That disaster which is going to wipe out every single public building on earth except one. That survivor, in my opinion, is the British Museum. The land capital it belongs there, right there. This might sound sacrilegious, but the British Museum is one place where every exhibit, every piece of human heritage is treated with reverence, exhibited, lit properly, described wonderfully with accompanying text, and is freely open for photography. And our land capital would be a wonderful addition to a spectacular series of objects that includes the colossal head of Amenhotep, the Rosetta Stone, the Sotonhu helmet, the Elgin marbles, a whole lot of things, the standard of Ur, even our own Amaravati reliefs, medallions. So that's what I would say. Rather than keep it here and bar Indians from photographing it, our land capital should be shifted to the British Museum for the rest of the world, for the whole world, including us, to feel it's ours.